I'm sure the reason that all of you are here today is that ultimately what you want is knowledge that will help you on your journey to God. You want to take something away that is going to help you. You're going to have sat through, by the end of this, probably about 2.5 hours of words. That's a lot of words. That's a lot of talking. Here's the question. How much are you going to retain? And how much of what you retain are you going to implement? One of my teachers said to me, there are 4 levels. Someone seeking knowledge, what have you, there are 4 levels. And they're summed up very nicely in an acronym. The acronym is R.U.M.I. R.U.M.I. Read, or in our case, retain. Understand. Memorize. Implement. Get the knowledge, know what it means, keep the knowledge, implement it. Now I want each of you here, brothers sitting here, sisters who are upstairs, I want you all to give me a promise. Agreed? You're all going to promise me? I won't ask you to sign all of your endowment policies over to me, don't worry. Alright? I want you to give me a promise. And the promise I want you to give me is that you, somewhere, either in your head, or on your phones, or on your pieces of paper, or on your hand, you're going to write down 5 things that you're going to take away today, that you're going to remember, and that you're going to implement. If each one of you here does that, I guarantee you this world will be a better place. I also guarantee you something else. You will be happier. You will be happier. Alright? And why I'm saying this is related to what Shaykh Sajjad's asked me to talk about. He said, what are the barriers between people's relationship with people, between people and God? Talk about that. I'll tell you a big one. Forgetfulness. Forgetfulness. We learn a lot of things, but we forget most of it. And when we especially forget it, unfortunately, is when we really need it. Shaykh Burhan said something, and I've noted this down. كَمَا تُدِينُ تُدَانُ. As you are with others, God will be with you. If you want God or Allah to withhold His anger from you, withhold your anger from others. If you've done something, every one of us, right, has done something wrong. If you can't think of something you've done wrong in the last day, then the fact that you can't remember that you've done something wrong is the thing that you've done wrong. Right? Each one of us has done something, has offended Allah in the last 24 hours. I challenge you to prove me wrong. Okay? What would you want Allah to do? What would you do if someone has offended you? And I don't mean random Joe X walking down the street, because it's easy to forgive random Joe X walking down the street, because you don't care about what random Joe X thinks about you. He's not going to trouble you. No. Think about your wife. Think about your husband, your brother, your sister, your dearest friend, your children. Think about people like that when they've done something to really upset you. Okay? How do we respond? The way you will respond is what you're storing up for the future. It's how Allah is going to respond to you. Allah says, I am to my servant as he thinks of me. Okay? Think about that. That's important. But here's the funny thing. You all know that now, because Shaykh Burhan said it and I've reinforced it. Okay? Here's the funny thing. You know when you'll forget it? When you're angry. That's when you'll forget it. At the moment that you really need that advice, it's gone. It's gone. Afterwards you think, wasn't I meant to withhold my anger? Wasn't I meant to be... I was meant to be forgiving, wasn't I? Next time I'll remember. That's what happens with all of us. Between the three of us here, you've probably got, about 30 years of experience teaching people. And 30 years of experience teaching people. And the most beneficial thing, I think, and I speak for all of us here, but I think honestly the most beneficial thing that 30 years has produced is simply this. That when someone has forgotten what we've taught them, alright, they'll come back to us to get reminded about it. Normally in a crisis, normally at 11 o'clock at night, and we get a phone call. Oh Shaykh, this happened, what do I do now? And you think to yourself, why didn't you phone me before you did it? Why are you phoning me afterwards? Shaykh, I've jumped off a cliff, I'm falling. What should I do? Fatiha. What do you want me to tell you? Why didn't you phone me when you were standing on the ledge? Shaykh, I didn't remember at that time. Forgetfulness. Forgetfulness. Alright? You know what happens when you go into the grave, right? You get asked 3 questions. Who is your Lord? What is your religion? And what did you have to say about Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Right? What did you have to say about? And you'll show. This is the great, one of the great joys of death is that you get to see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah, you know that you'll be told. What did you be shown the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And Munkar and Nakir will ask you, what did you have to say? You know, I have a joke with my wife, with my father when he sings like naats and salamis and stuff. You know, and he has this little book that he carries with him. You know, he'll pull it out. Mashallah, he's over 70 now. He'll pull out this book, got a lovely voice. Pull out this book, he'll kind of flip through the pages, and he'll start singing it, salami, you know. And I say, I have a joke with my wife that, you know, when we put your dad, you know, maybe a long time in the future, when your dad goes in the ground, and Munkar and Nakir ask him, what did you have to say about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He'll pull out his little book. He'll flip, which one do you want to hear? Which one do you want to hear? Alright? But the point is, the answers to these questions are what? Right? So you've got a 3-question exam when you die. The answer to question 1, I'll tell you all now, so you all know the answer. The answer to question 1 is Allah. The answer to question 2 is Islam. The answer to question 3 is, I believe He is the Messenger of God. Right? So you can all go home now. You can all go home now, because now you know the answers to the test you're going to get at the end of your life. Okay? So go home. Allah Hafiz. Assalamu alaikum. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad. What? No one's getting up. Oh, it's one person got up. I think he only went to sit by the wall though. Why? What's the problem here? What's the problem here? Yeah? Get one of those Nigel Farage planes. You know those biplanes, the ones that he crashed, right? With those streamers behind it. Fly it over London, so everyone can see it. And say, answers to question 1, answers to question 2, answers to question 3, and everyone is sorted out, no problem. What's the problem? The problem is, when you really need to remember the answers, you won't be able to. You won't be able to recall it. The hadith about this is that the believer or the righteous person will answer the questions. The unrighteous person will say, I used to hear people saying something. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember it. I can't remember what it was. This is a part of being human. The word human in Arabic is ins. Ins. Allah says we created the jinn and the ins. Right? You'll probably know better insan. Okay, the word insan. The word insan is what's called a derived word. It has two meanings in Arabic. The first meaning is forgetfulness, is nisyan. To be human is to be forgetful. To be human is to be forgetful. The second meaning is uns. And uns means the joy that you feel when you are with the one you love. That's uns. The joy you feel when you're with your beloved. And the entire journey that we're all undertaking, this whole sirat al-mustaqim that we're on, or trying to get to, is the journey within the human being, from one aspect of the human being to the second aspect of the human being. From nisyan to uns. From a state of forgetfulness to a state of loving remembrance and presence with God. That's what it means to be a human being. Alright? The Prophet ﷺ reminds us, and we are there to be reminded. And the more reminders we get, the better it is for us. However, as I say, the three of us sitting here are teachers. One thing you learn as a teacher, if someone listens to something, they'll retain, so you're listening to this lecture now, you'll retain between 10 and 20% of it. Okay? If you write it down, you'll retain, i.e. you'll remember, between 20 and 40% of it. What you write down, you'll remember between 20 and 40% of that. If you've written it down and you go over it again, that's why I'm repeating some of the things that the other teachers told you. If you hear it again, you'll remember between 40 and 60% of it. But if you implement it, you do it, you bring it into practice, you'll remember between 80 and 100%. That's why our religion, which ultimately is about knowing God, has so many things that we need to do. It has so many, what you call in education, skills that need to be mastered. Prayer is a set of actions and a set of things to be recited. Okay? Fasting is being aware of what you're putting into your mouth. Right? Quran is reciting in a foreign language to most people. Right? These are all practices. Why are they there? Why do they exist? They exist to reinforce certain things. It is very hard to be arrogant when you're in sajda. It's not impossible, mind you. It's not impossible. But it's very hard to be arrogant when you're in sajda. Right? If you think about what you're reciting while you're reciting it, you're being constantly reminded about certain things. There's a reason that the Quran, it's when you read it in English from cover to cover, it's not easy to read because it's not like, once upon a time, ... and it ends with, and they all lived happily ever after. It's not a story. It doesn't have a novel form. What it has, if you look at it, is a set of core messages. It's like a flower. It's like drawing a flower. It has a set of core messages. You know when you draw a flower, especially if you're like me, you can't draw. You draw a circle, and then you draw petals around it. Right? You kind of loop like that, yes? Anyone like me? Draws flowers like me? I'm a very bad artist. Anyway, the Quran has a core set of messages. Everything else in the Quran is a petal. It goes around, it comes back to the message. It goes around, it comes back to the message. It goes around, it goes back to the message. No matter what bit you read of the Quran, no matter what bit you read of it, you're getting some of that core message. You can randomly open the Quran to a page, randomly. Read from top of the page to the bottom of the page, you'll get the core messages reinforced. Why? Because we are forgetful. And the more we are reminded, the more we are likely to take admonition, the more we are likely to bring it into our lives, to do it. And that's the benefit, that's the real benefit of classes and things like that. It's not about the notes. It's not about you come for a lecture once a year, inshallah I can tick that off now, I've done my one lecture for the year, it's done, tick, I had a bit of an iman boost, took my vitamins, okay, I'm cool for one more year. No. You know a stone? Allah compares the hearts to stones. ثُمَّ قَصَتْ قُلُوبُكُمْ فَهِيَ كَالْحِجَارَةِ أَوْ أَشَّدُّ قَسْوَةً. Their hearts became hard until they became like rock, or even harder than rock.